few things that I've experienced that, first, if you don't have electricity, then rice pots don't work. But rice pots are good sterilizers. You can buy those in any country, almost any country. I'm not, maybe not in Mali. Luggage, since they've reduced the, you're only allowed 50 pounds. I use duffel bags instead of suitcases. Duffel bags weigh 2 pounds. So, and I weighed a lot of suitcases, and they average between 11 and 13 pounds.
Both of the last two trips we were on, if you talk to the right people at Delta and you get the right attitude and the right folks, we had all of our bag fees weighed, going both directions, both trips.
And sometimes you can. I deal with Air Pacific. In the last 2 years, they haven't made a profit, so they're looking for the extra dollars. And last time I went to Kittitas, it cost me $600 for just extra luggage fees. But it's worth it, you know. You just factor that in when you're going. You know you're going to have things like that. And there are some supply companies that you can always get donations from. 3M has a policy of donating $1,000 of supplies a year to a dentist doing a service project. And that's a good thing to know. Ultradent has been excellent for donating supplies. This last year, I've learned normally not to try and get donations from these supply companies at the end of the year because they're running out of their humanitarian funds for the season. But this year I hit Ultradent in December, and I thought, well, we'll see what happens. And a couple of other places, and I got huge donations. They were looking for a tax write-off. And so at one place, I made $25,000 worth of deposit. And Ultradent sent me a corded second generation curing light, one of those 10-second lights, but it had a cord rather than being cordless. Well, I can live with that. And so you just never know. And he mentioned cold sterilization, bleach. If you get enough bleach, you can sterilize about anything. And we'd go through, we'd have a pre-soak with soap and bleach. And then we'd have a cold sterilization pot where they'd stay a certain length of time in water and bleach. By the time they get out, they are clean. And I did bring one visual aid. I wouldn't go on a service project without a Leatherman's tool. You'd be amazed at what you can do with a Leatherman's tool. On one of our trips to Tonga, we had Benny Hickman. Maybe some of you know Benny. He worked for different dental companies. He worked for 43 years as a dental service repairman. He finally retired and went on a mission to Africa. But he was going with us to Tonga to get all of our equipment that we have there back into good working shape. And we had 11 going, we had 22 bags, and when we got there we had 21 bags. You know the bag that was missing? Benny's tools. They'd gone on to New Zealand, and so I said, here Benny, take this Leatherman tool. And he worked all week. He had just about everything repaired just with that, and a screwdriver and a couple other things that we found along the way. And a week later, his bag showed up. But he had most everything repaired by the time that came. So, so many times I just said, oh, I'm glad to have this program. I used to give them away to people in need, but it got a little expensive, so I bring them home now. Do you have any questions for anybody that has talked today?
The trips that you have to Tonga and Samoa and Kiribati.
Kiribati,
Kiribati. The dentists take their own supplies and stuff, hand pieces there, or I know some of those clinics have been there for a while.
The clinics are pretty well supplied. I tell, but you never know what's going to be working after the last doctor was there. So I say, take your favorite hand pieces, take your favorite hand instruments. We're well supplied with oral surgery instruments, and you have curing lights and all those things in place, but if you got, I always take my favorite hand pieces, because I know they're working, and I also take, and then we encourage you to take, to contact these places like 3M and Ultradent and get some supplies, take more supplies that you're going to use. When we start to get a surplus, one of the great PR things in these countries is to be able to go down to the National Hospital and say, well, we have some extra supplies that we'd like to donate to you. And that we kept really good public relations with the dentists in those countries by doing that. They really appreciate it. So many times I've gone to Tonga and the chief dental officer comes to me and he says, we're out of amalgam. Now that's pretty basic. And down to our last can of anesthetic. So we always try and take more than we need so that we can share with people in the countries we go to.
Find you're taking business away from any local practitioners?
No, in Tonga, they're all government dentists. In Samoa, there's only 2 private dentists. There's only, I think, 9 dentists in Samoa for 250,000 people. And no, and we go to their, they have, we do, actually we go do continuing education with them, and they've invited us to do that. So you don't want to force yourself on them. We had an OBGYN that went to Tonga, and he was really good, but he went to the medical staff and said, I'm going to teach you about OBGYN. Well, the nurses came, but none of the medical doctors did. But there, I started out by working in the hospital, and they look over my shoulder, and pretty soon they'd start asking questions. Pretty soon they wanted to, well, this is the way the Dr. Moy, the chief dental officer at the time, approached me. He says, Wayne, you get to go to continuing education courses? And I said, yeah, I try and get in 40 hours a year. And he said, you know, we don't get that opportunity here. We get our training wherever we happen to go, but we don't get continuing education. He says, would you mind sharing with us some of the new things that you've learned or through your continuing education course? And I said, no, I'd love to. They all came, and we had some really good sessions. So it's a lot of, you want them to approach you on continuing education.
Tell them about the DMF.
Oh, DMF in Tonga. First time I went to Tonga was in 1995. There was almost no interproximal decay. It had a lot of occlusal decay, had perio on older patients, but almost no interproximal decay. And since then, the DMF rate has doubled and doubled again until it's epidemic. You see teenage kids with half their teeth missing. You never saw that when I first started going. And you can chart throughout the South Pacific and well, any place in the world, as the sugar consumption goes up, the decay rate goes up. Just that's the way it is. Any other questions? Thank you for those who. I think it's been great, and it'll be especially good to put on our website with all the charts and everything that you had today. It'll be excellent. Thank you.
Trip fee to Tonga?
Pardon?
Trip fee, airline ticket?
Oh, we go through Fiji Travel out of LA, and depending on the year, usually we can get between $900 and $1,100 round trip.
Same as been for several years.
So it's, you've got to get to LA. They'll usually charge you a couple $100 for a round trip, unless you got some points. Miles, yeah. And
What does yours cost?
Ours was
It's about-
flight was, between 2,000 and 2,700 depending on the year. This last year we got it for about, was it 19, is the cheapest we'd ever had it, but in ground about 800, but by the time you have incidentals, you're into about $4,000.
Are the trips to China subsidized somehow? Because I know I was talking to
No.
Carl, and it's like only about $1,050 to fly to China and back for the week that you're there, so that's the total fee, which is considerably cheaper than a lot of the others.
Lynn, this may
Academy is-
make some sick, but how much does it cost you to go down to the DR?
It's about $1,200.
And that's flight and
That's
food.
everything,
Everything.
everything.
Oh.
So that's not bad.
That's with a swimming pool too. I saw the swimming pool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
mine is on
You
there.
You know, I always tell
I don't
people
know what
that
it's-
going to the South Pacific is a working vacation. After seeing these pictures, I really believe that's a working vacation. After we get through working hard all day, we go swim in the ocean. We don't have to worry about being mugged, or we don't have to take guards with us. It's a safe place.
In the hole?
Yeah. Well,
Well, thanks.
Thank you.